Warlocks, the last time I talked about any sort of Void build was, I think, my Briarbind's Touch of Malice setup from, it's like 2 years ago now or something, although I actually did just recently remake that build thanks to some Briarbind's buffs. But today, we are here to talk about the beauty that is now nothing Manacles. A couple of months ago, Scatter Grenades got a buff. Charged grenades make 4 more Seekers, and then the Seekers themselves got buffed. Improved tracking, increased lifetime, and their damage was boosted by 25%. So if a lot of these changes happened in a previous patch, why are we acknowledging nothing Manacles now? Well, part of it is because of those changes, sure, but part of it is also the fact that it basically acts like Graviton Lance now, in that when you get kills with a scatter grenade, it's going to spawn more Seekers to hunt down for more kills, which, if they get kills, can turn into more Seekers and continue to chain forever. You might also be asking about whether or not you should be charging the grenade, because the other patch note addresses that. Charged scatter grenades now have faster final projectile speed. I did a couple of demos in the shooting range, and the results were inconclusive. Sometimes it felt like the charged grenade went faster, and sometimes it didn't. This doesn't really change your damage at all, although in theory it should change your DPS because the damage should be applied much faster, but that wasn't the case consistently enough. I'm sure there are some applications where charging a grenade with nothing Manacles does actually have an impact, but for the 99% of other use cases, I think charging is more of a placebo than anything else. Chaos Accelerant does get you an additional grenade charge, though, for a total of 3, which can be nice, but if you set up your build properly, and you're also keeping Devour active on yourself, and you're, using your grenades intelligently, grenade energy should not be that big of a deal. Child of the Old Gods, on the other hand, applies Weaken, which has some application in the artifact. It feeds you all forms of ability energy, and it scales off of your grenade stat, which should be pretty high already, if not maxed out. So let's talk about the build then. Now, because of the artifact, you can get Devour from simply weakening targets with Child of the Old Gods or whatever method you want to use, and then getting some rapid kills. You could also just use the Fragment that gives you Devour on Orb pickup. I say all that to say that I could see a world where you don't run with Feed the Void if you are willing to give up the increased effects that it provides to Devour if you wanted an extra grenade charge and the option to speed up your scatters. Personally, though, I'm still taking Feed the Void and Child of the Old Gods. Fragments, I was trying out the following. Number 1, Undermining. Grenades weaken enemies, pretty self-explanatory, although if you're happy with Child of the Old Gods' weaken capabilities or anything from the artifact, you can just flex this out. Instability. Grenade kills give you volatile rounds on your Void weapons for a bit. Considering that you should be getting a lot of these, it seemed like a no-brainer since you'll want to get weapon kills to help trigger Devour to keep the grenades coming. However, if the grenades are getting the job done, there's not much need to be shooting your gun that often, but I did find myself shooting often enough to make this worth it. Plus, it gives some anti-barrier capabilities. Starvation, picking up an orb gives you Devour. This is mainly here as a backup to getting the Devour engine up and running, as being without ability energy and no Devour is not very fun. And then we have a flex spot. I was trying Expulsion, but I think the chain scatters should be more than enough. You have Harvest, since a good amount of enemies should be weakened. Persistence, to just keep Devour up for even longer. Or maybe Reprisal to get some more supers off, since the Lawless Frontier will ensure that you stay surrounded. As for the artifact, obviously we're grabbing the 3 Void perks. You might want to consider a sword in this build, if anything, for the plethora of sword perks in the artifact, but if you just wanted to run with some kind of a gun setup, I think that is totally fine as well. That's what I was doing. Not every build needs to utilize every single part of the artifact. For armor, I went with a mix of Gunner and Grenadier armor to power my grenades with some secondary stats in my super and weapon usage. This does leave me a bit low on class ability energy, but if you're smart about Child of the Old Gods, you should be able to get by on low class stat. If you do want to spec for a little more though, I think that's totally fine. I might even change my setup for a little bit more after a session of playing with this setup. Mods should not be too surprising here either, with a very heavy focus on grenade energy and void damage. The build plays itself for the most part. Throw a grenade near a group of enemies, watch as it chain kills everything in sight, and just repeat that for, like, I don't know, forever. It's pretty much graviton lance, but in grenade form. I would not say that this is a very high APM build, actions per minute, in that you need to push a lot of unique buttons, but if you're doing your job correctly, you will be slaying out quite a lot, and therefore will have many grenades to throw and abilities to use. Much like Void Titan, this build excelled in the Lawless Frontier because of the enemy density. There are so many things for the Seekers to go find and kill that you can chain for really long periods of time. Not only that, even with how tanky some of these enemies can be, your scatter grenades will actually feel like they're using all of their Seekers to kill your enemy instead of doing just massive overkill damage like you might do in other activities. Child of the Old Gods is also providing more energy and weakness application, although I will say that you do need to plan the location of your Child of the Old God a little more meticulously than normal if you have low class stat. Otherwise, you are going to be without your Rift for quite a while. Try to centralize it as much as possible to hit a lot of enemies at once. Weapon-wise, I've experimented with a few things, although I have just been staying on Void for the most part. And I've mainly been using older weaponry. Reckless Oracle from Garden, Exalted Truth from Trials. I have a Corrective Measure from Vault with Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie that puts in some serious work, and I never have to reload the thing pretty much ever. There haven't really been too many good Void weapon offerings lately, at least in terms of like automatic weapons. So if you did want to fall back on some Void exotics, that's not a terrible idea. It might really only be your only choice. This is really only a problem in avant-garde activities though, aka new gear only content, but the build doesn't stop working just because you need to put on some non-Void weapons. Whatever feels good to use, paired with maybe a little bit of grenade synergy in terms of perks or something like that, is going to be just fine. Outside of Lawless Frontiers, I think this build works quite well in pretty much all modes of play, although the easier the content is, the more overkill I think this build is. You might have some issues in solo ops if you're playing in less enemy-dense activities, because you're just going to be doing a lot of running around instead of fighting, which isn't really great for this setup at all, since the whole point is chaining kills and keeping Devour rolling. Most 6-player non-raid content will be good to use this build, and most 3-player content in Fireteam Ops will be good as well, especially anything more modern, like Battlegrounds, due to their enemy density and how the encounters are designed, making this build quite viable. The sweet spot for this build, I would say, is around 20 to 30 levels above you, so the enemies are that much stronger, which means ultimate level content shouldn't really be that much of a problem. I think the main time that you're going to struggle is when things are starting to scale so high in level that your grenades aren't killing anything, and therefore aren't creating those chain kill moments. You must resist the urge to throw your grenades at super tanky targets unless they're the only thing alive, and trust, it's going to be really tempting, but you need to be selective. Burning all of your charges, especially without Devour rolling, is going to set you back for a little while. Fortunately, you're really only seeing this in the very end stages of Frontiers and some Conquest content, so this should not be too much of a problem. Also, another struggle point, the self-kills, bro. Oh my god, the self-kill potential is through the roof with this setup. The amount of times I've brought myself to basically no health running this build for only a few hours is really high. Just be careful, stand back a bit, at least while your first grenade is going off. I know what you're thinking though, Datto. What about Controverse Hold? You know, the other one. Controverse is doing just fine as well, but it does have one advantage over Nothing Manacles. Its power does not rely on killing, just hitting. And Axion bolts explode 2 times, giving it a lot of damage and a lot of staying power, especially in higher tier content. However, Axion does have its own drawbacks as well, and personally, I'm just not the hugest fan of slowly charging my grenade and letting it loose versus just flicking out some grenades really fast and moving on. But both exotics are very good and very viable. I'm really enjoying this setup right now. Definitely recommend messing around with Nothing Manacles. They are very, very strong. The grenades hit super hard. I use them quite a lot in D1. I haven't touched them in a very long time. They are really, really solid now. Let me know how your experience with them has been so far. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.